Still there?
Yes, Jim. We have some late news here. Leonard Aubrey, who's the chief official of NYU Downtown Hospital, says the police have stopped EMS, Emergency Medical Service ambulances, from going to the site of the crashes. The hospital is now expecting an influx of bodies. We are told there are many fatalities. This is the tip of the iceberg. The hospital has received 3 bodies, but at that point it was determined not to allow the ambulances to go any further. Some 250 people were treated here, most of them for minor injuries, really, breathing problems from cardiac cases. But we're told now that the hospital is expecting a large influx of bodies.
Well, sad to say, that's not surprising, Ollie. The 2 largest office buildings in Manhattan, filled with thousands of workers. I mean, they're both, either one would be the size of a small city, annihilated by terrorist bombs. John Rowland is in the newsroom this morning. John?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Like you, trying to take all of this in, it's just mind-boggling. Let me just give you a little bit of transportation information. New York Waterway Service to New Jersey, Brooklyn, and Queens is working, and that's out of Pier 11, going to Jersey City, Hoboken, and Weehawken. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to get in or out of the city right now. The City University of New York has canceled all of its classes. We said earlier that the election today has been canceled. The CUNY buildings, even though classes are canceled, the CUNY buildings are going to stay open so that the people who can't get home will at least have some place to stay. Let me give you the blood center hotline number, 1-800-933-2566, in case you're able to donate blood. And if you're a doctor or a nurse, all the hospitals are asking that if you haven't already gone into work, please do so. Now, let's go over again the timeline of this horrific event that happened this morning, starting at about 8:50 this morning. Let's take a look at that tape. This is 8:50 this morning.
Believed to be a plane crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center.
Now that was Dick Oliver. Have you been hearing him all day from Good Day New York? He was in Lower Manhattan at the time when the first plane slammed into the World Trade Center Tower number 2. Smoke and flames engulfed the top part of that building, as you can see. The plane left a huge hole in the side of the building. Then about 20 minutes later, a second plane, again on a suicide run. Look at that. Sorry, it went almost right through the building. Now both towers now are engulfed in flames and in smoke. Now because that plane hit lower, the structural damage caused by the impact of that jet caused the top of tower number 1 to collapse first. Tower number 1 collapsed first shortly after 10 a.m. Shards of glass and steel came plummeting down, and the smoke buried the surrounding buildings. Now, you saw earlier the tape from our camera crew, what that was like when what you're seeing now finally did go down and actually hit the street. And about a half an hour later, more of the unthinkable, the North World Trade Tower number 2 came tumbling down. Again, raining steel and glass, tons of steel and glass, smoke everywhere, the damage unbelievable, and the death toll unbelievable. 50,000 people work in those 2 buildings, and we don't know how many of them were evacuated before all of this happened. And there you see it coming down. Now, in addition to that, on top of all of that confusion and destruction, another terrorist attack. This one was in Washington. The Pentagon was attacked. Another plane, a suicide plane, crashed into it. Flames and smoke there. That building has been evacuated. 5 floors of the Pentagon collapsed, and we don't know how many of our service people were killed in the attack there. Let me just give you a little bit more information, Jim, before I throw it back to you from the Long Island Railroad. It is running limited service now to get people out of the city. Limited, LIRR, from Penn Station has resumed. However, the passengers, you have to realize that because of the security and the limited number of people will be allowed in the station at the time. Metro North now has started limited service out of Manhattan. The limited service on the subways also, the A, the F, and the E, and the number 7 lines. Passengers will not be allowed to get onto any trains coming into Manhattan. You're allowed out on some limited trains and subway trains and out of Penn Station, but you are not allowed at this point to come into Manhattan. All right, Jim, back to you.
All right, Ollie, why do I keep calling you Ollie? I apologize to you. I'm so used to dealing with Dick Oliver. Yeah, to underscore that, you cannot get into Manhattan by public transportation right now. We don't know when it's going to resume, but obviously for the foreseeable future, every effort is being made to steer people away from the island of Manhattan so that the rescue effort can go forward, and sad to say, the cleaning up effort can go forward as well. I understand that Chopper 5 is up. Of course, they have to keep their distance as well, but they can take a look at some of the roads around the city. Is that Kai? Oh. All right. They have to shoot those shots from a long way away, so we lost
any of the normal routes, bridges and tunnels, everything pretty much shut down at this point for security purposes. But you can see down here off in the distance that large plume of smoke continues to rise over lower Manhattan. Lots of people pulling over onto the shoulders on many of our major roadways just to catch a glimpse of something that is or was previously just unbelievable to them. But you can see quite a scene down here, chaos down there, no doubt, in lower Manhattan. And people are no doubt really stunned about what's going on here, I being one of them.
Is that the Triborough in front of you there, Kai? Can you hear me? No, Kai cannot hear me, but it does look like the Triborough Bridge. There's the toll plaza, ordinarily mobbed. Not a car in sight there today, except maybe just a few cars heading toward Queens, and that's it. I suppose I should make the point that the people who pulled off this series of attacks chose not only a symbol of the vibrancy of this city, but they also chose a place which was the largest concentration of office workers on a workday in the entire city. So they apparently knew what they were doing.
On a day that was where Americans go and vote possibly for
well, New Yorkers anyway. Right?
Yeah, New Yorkers next anyway. Mayor of New York City. Primary day.
True enough. Dave Corporon is the cameraman here at Fox 5 who shot that footage of the people running in past him. Dave, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Jim.
Give me your personal reaction to what you saw as you shot this footage.
Well, you know, in hindsight, of course, I think I was a little too close for comfort, and if I had it to do over again, I don't know if I would have been that close to ground zero. But I mean, looking at it now, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's the only word to describe it. It's just, you can't fathom that something like this would happen, and then certainly that a 110, 107, 110-story building would just come crashing down like that. And certainly we thought, I mean, we were half a block away. And when we heard the residual explosion, people just started running, really, literally running for their lives. And you know, we thought we were at a safe distance. And then, as you see on the video, it's the plume of smoke just kept coming closer and closer from all different directions and enveloped us and turned to pitch black, which is the point where I got the most terrified, of course, because you know, I clearly stayed too long. But it's just hard. I mean, it's hard to fathom, you know, as we all see on the video. But unbelievable. And just once I was enveloped with the blackness of the smoke, it was everything just an eerie silence. And trying to just walk, cover my mouth with my shirt, just feeling my way across Broadway to try to get somewhere, anywhere, in an office building, in a bank, find a subway entrance. You know, couldn't do it. It's pitch black, and you know, I'm starting to think of worse things happening. But just an eerie silence, just very scary.
Dave, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Dave, how long did it take before the smoke cleared and you were actually able to see something?
Well, as you saw on the video, you know, the smoke came just whipping up the block probably and got to us within 20 seconds. It went to gray and then to pitch black. I mean, the gray smoke turned to black smoke within 5 to 10 seconds. And I was probably feeling my way around with, I mean, I could not see my hand in front of my face for at least 2 minutes. So it was very terrifying because, I mean, you heard people moaning, calling out, please help me, but I mean, I could barely help myself because I couldn't see where I was, and you just don't know how long this smoke is gonna to be around you. I mean, you don't know if it's ever gonna clear, but if I had to guess, I would say a good 2 or 3 minutes before it started to lift, and it lightened up a bit. But then, of course, as you see on the follow-up video, with police officers laying on the ground, paramedics, people just spread out all over the street. I mean, there were literally, you know, hundreds of people just scattered around Broadway and all the side streets. You know, you just didn't know where you were, and that haze never left. And then, if I had to guess, it was probably 10 or 15 minutes later, and then the other one came crashing.
Dave, during that total blackout, what did you do? You weren't able to see anything. Did you try to go anywhere, or did you just stop and stay where you were? No,
I kept walking because obviously, if you saw in the video, you know, the wall of smoke just heading my way, and as I said before, I definitely stayed there a little too long, but you know, that's my job. But you know, I turned around, and then smoke was literally coming up from the side streets and then north on Broadway, and as well as on Vesey Street. So I just tried to, once I was surrounded by it and it turned black, I just slowly walked, you know, crouching if possible, if there was any oxygen to breathe, but just kept walking north on Broadway, feeling my way till hopefully, like I said, I could find an office building, a bank, anything, because clearly at the time I had no idea if the smoke was going to lift ever. You know, but fortunately it did, like I said, after about 2 or 3 minutes. But it was just a slow process, and a lot of people just stopped and dropped and got on their bellies. Other people just kind of walked to nowhere because there was really nowhere to I mean, you literally could not see your hand in front of your face. It was so thick.
Dave, looking at the aftermath, and you see all that soot everywhere, how difficult was it for you to breathe? I would imagine that would have been extremely difficult for you and anybody caught up in that. It
was choking. I mean, if you could see me now, I'm covered in soot and dirt and whatever else is floating around in the air. It was tough because you could feel yourself choking, burning in your throat. Your eyes are certainly burning. You know, the key for me was, like, you know, you say in the back of your mind, don't panic, because if you do, any number of things can happen. You start hyperventilating, anything. But, you know, try to keep your composure if it's at all possible. But yeah, it was very difficult, and you got to wonder because no one knew. I mean, we've never seen anything like this ever before in history. No one knew if the smoke was going to lift, so you just kind of take your baby steps and get your way out of there, wherever that was going to be. But it was very difficult. We were very fortunate.
Well, congratulations, Dave, on going above and beyond the call of duty. Nice job, and hope you're okay, and hope you get cleaned up real soon.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
All right, Dave Corporon, the Fox 5 cameraman who took those pictures. By the way, we are also now informed that 2 American warships are en route to New York Harbor, presumably to station themselves here in the harbor, in the bay, and make sure that no further terrorist activities are taking place. I would presume that they'd be coming from Newport News or someplace down there, down the coast.
Yeah, and Jim, you know something that pretty much keeps in line with what I was telling you guys a little bit earlier. I have my cell phone up here and I keep getting phone calls and people from military installations that are calling me, telling me that things are a lot worse than what we are being led to believe at this point. And the only thing that I could surmise from that is that there are more terrorist attacks possibly planned. And if they have those warships coming into the harbor, that's possible. That could be going on. Also, another thing here, we wanted to give out a phone number. Morgan Stanley, they have a phone number on tap here for anyone who's interested in information about a family member who works for Morgan Stanley. That number on the screen right now, it's 1-888-883-4391. Number again, right on your screen, 888-883-4391. If you have anybody who works at Morgan Stanley and you would like some information about them, you can definitely give them a call.
All right, as we continue to give you some visual idea of the depth of this tragedy, take a look at this next piece of video coming up. What we will show you is the person waving frantically, somehow seeking help from somebody to get out of the inferno that certainly is behind him. The man climbing out on one of the upper floors of the World Trade Center, waving his coat, asking somebody, please come and help me. I'm sure there were thousands like him. We happen to see his picture, and there you see paper flying by in front of him. And there you see the smoke just billowing out of the windows behind him. What we could not show you in that picture was when he jumped.
Jim, we have some phone numbers now, emergency phone numbers. Only call them if it's really an emergency. American Airlines has a number you can call if you believe you have a loved one on any of those flights. The number is 1-800-245-0999, 1-800-245-0999. And I believe we have another phone call, another line for United Airlines. That number is 1-800-932-8555, 1-800-932-8555. Call these numbers only if it's an emergency.
And it's been some 5 hours after the first blast right now, and look, that's a live picture I presume we're looking at? And okay, that's a live picture 5 hours after the tragedy. The World Trade Center, where there are some 50,000 people working on a daily basis, blown to smithereens, eradicated from the skyline by 2 planes hijacked by terrorists. Well, we're continuing our coverage of this tragedy. We will tell you that not only were our city struck here, but also the Pentagon, the military complex in Washington, was attacked as well, and a 4th plane that one could presume was hijacked by terrorists. It took out of Newark Airport en route to San Francisco. That went down in the western part of Pennsylvania, and one can only presume that there was some heroism that took place on that plane.
Well, Jim, we have some new video just into the Fox 5 newsroom. This is of Tower 1 collapsing. Let's take a look at that video right now. Obviously, the cameraman knows he's in trouble on that one, and everybody's starting to run when they see Tower 1 falling to the ground. Oh.
And when you're running like that, just in fear for your life, you have no idea how close that is behind you.
You don't dare look back.
And it's just coming from every street. Look at that.
Yeah, we saw in Dave Corporon's video earlier that that the smoke came from around corners and came in front of you and behind you. And look at this right here, this video right here, where suddenly a big, huge plume of smoke comes around the corner. And then you can see a little later, it comes from the next block as well. Dave courageously continues to stand there, taking pictures of the smoke and the debris coming at him. And then to the left of the camera, here comes more smoke. So he's just coming at him from every direction.
Just can't escape it.
It must have been terrorizing to be in that. That's not being inside the World Trade Center, where the carnage took place. That's just outside. And there's a live picture now of Lower Manhattan.
The skyline of New York has dramatically changed in this town.
5 hours plus after the first blast, the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, no more, and 50,000 people working inside. The toll here may be, in the use of the mayor's words, horrendous.
Such a frightening picture when you look at this. I mean, still, it's all, we just keep repeating it, but it is just unbelievable that an attack of this magnitude has happened in this city. And again, it really raises the issue. I mean, this is something, obviously, that people are thinking right now, the security at our airports. Joe when he was here earlier, the security expert, talking about how when something like this happens, there seems to be a concentrated effort on increasing security at the airports and other facilities, and then we become a little too comfortable with that in our society, and it becomes a little lax.
Unfortunately, that statue there to the left of your picture was not attacked and is unharmed. A symbol of freedom and liberty in this country.
Well, Brian has been monitoring the internet for us right now. Brian, what are you seeing over there?
You know, what's happening here is I believe everyone feels, if nothing else, a bit of a safety in being able to communicate immediately with the internet, because phones are down, so you're hearing a bit of panic on the internet saying, I can't get a hold of someone, but they're being able to email a friend who is emailing a friend when they can't get a hold of family members. I spoke with one friend who was speaking with a friend on the internet again, who was on the phone with someone in the second tower when it was hit. I am waiting to get that story as we speak. I'm also in touch with several contacts that I have regarding Afghanistan and that kind of situation and their take on it since the Taliban's denial of that kind of situation. But in the meantime, it's basically everyone in the streets of New York trying to get home, and the traffic jams, and everyone kind of on the internet, if you will, breathing a sigh of relief that they're home safely and worried about other people. So I think kind of the take of the city is, wow, our problems yesterday didn't really matter. Back to you.
Okay, thanks, Brianne.
All right, we have Lynn.
I'm back up, and I'm filling in for Jim because Jim has been up here all morning. So I've just been downstairs, just watching our air, watching what is going on. You still can't
comprehend it, right?
And when the video was shown of that smoke just coming through, I'm looking at people downstairs that we work with who just, their eyes just filled with tears. I mean, this is one of the most dramatic things that I have ever seen happen in the 20-some-odd years I have been in broadcasting.
I think it would be really the most dramatic thing that most people in the city have ever experienced, especially if you're down there. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that you're running, literally running for your life, and you have this huge plume of smoke, which you have no idea really why this is happening, what's going on, and it's chasing you down this street. And then you're running around a corner, and there's another huge plume of smoke coming at you. You can't breathe. There's debris falling on top of you. Yeah. It's a little chilly, actually, in the studio, and my teeth are chattering. But I mean, it's really frightening.
It is
well, you know, New York, a symbol of power and strength, a leader in financial markets across the world. To have this city come to a standstill, I mean, is disgraceful that these terrorists were able to penetrate our city.
It is really something. We are going to, our own Dave Price is out, and Dave was around the United Nations, and he was talking to some people out there, getting their thoughts and reactions. Let's take a look at that.
We're at the United Nations right now, speaking with one of the people who was evacuated earlier this morning. Charles Hunt, you work for American Express. Tell us what happened and give us the time frame.
About 9 o'clock this morning, someone came into the office and said that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center. We all looked out, saw the smoke and the gaping hole. About 15 minutes later, they evacuated. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, and only essential personnel and services are now back in, and the UN has dismissed all contractors.
Was it an orderly evacuation?
No, a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos. So nobody knew where to go and things like that.
Had most of the diplomats, do you know, arrived for work?
Well, the GA, the General Assembly, starts in about 10 days, and I understand the Security Council is still in session.
Do you imagine you'll be back in the building within the next 24 hours? Have they mentioned what the plans are to have you back in that building?
At this point, no. No one's made any announcements or forecasts.
And one final question, given that you do work for the travel agency that books the travel for the diplomats, in those few minutes before the evacuation and after the bombing, had you heard from any diplomatic corps requesting reservations to leave the area?
No, nothing.
Describe the mood in the United Nations this morning.
Tense, confusion, a lot of questions, a lot of concern, a lot of sadness.
That's the situation right here at the United Nations. Once again, to repeat, the United Nations has been evacuated. Only now essential personnel still in the building, and basically a lockdown with high security. And we will continue to track what's happening around the area. Let's send it back to you.
All right. right, thank you very much, Dave, out around the United Nations talking to people out there. We were talking earlier because, oh, I can't remember exactly who it was, a reporter that came in and said she was in a cab, and Kimberly Richardson, and she said she could hear what sounded like demonstrations or something going on at the United Nations, but wasn't sure that there was any kind of connection, which it probably turned out not to be. But you think to yourself, the United Nations, why not the United Nations
I think
building?
it was an attack against the United States, not against the world, against the United States. It was a definite attack, but we'll find out later. Now, Barbara Nevins is down in Lower Manhattan. Barbara, what are you seeing over there?
Vehicles going up Avenue of the Americas, 6th Avenue, from the area of the World Trade Towers. I'm here, however, with Matthew Zucchini. President Bush talked about this being a test, and in every crisis there are people who come forward and put themselves to the test. Matthew Zucchini is among those people. Matthew Zucchini and his friends are construction workers. You were working up on 28th Street and you walked down to the World Trade Towers. Tell us what happened.
That's correct. When we got down there, we were directed by police and fire department to attend a command center and find out where would be most useful. And at that time, we were helping with the fire department with stretch hoses, couple hoses, moving debris out of the way to get fire trucks in closer to the actual site of the explosions. There was numerous explosions still occurring as we were down there.
What was it like on the ground there, Matthew? What did you see?
Tragedy. It was chaos. I mean, the main concern, I guess, from their point of view was to secure the area at first, but my concern was for the people that might be buried. And unfortunately, they have, they have their process that they go through as far as safety. There was debris that was loose on the buildings, on the corners of the buildings that could have fallen off and injured fire department employees, police department, Port Authority police. There was Army.
And you were just a volunteer, you and your friends who were construction workers who were able-bodied.
My boss, his brother, and myself from New York Sign Erectors walked down from 28th. Didn't figure we'd get the truck down there. We had a crane truck. We could have moved debris for them with the crane truck, but we just walked down. And luckily, we were able, to lend a hand.
And you were moving
everyone
debris.
Can do the same thing. I mean, everyone is. I'm sure it would be welcome down there. It's a serious effort in place down there.
Well, we say everyone. We're talking about able-bodied men and women. We're talking about people who can actually clear debris.
Absolutely. I mean, not even so much. I mean, at times we were carrying water to firemen who were coming out and they had asbestos and fiberglass in their eyes. We were rinsing their eyes for them. Whatever we could do down there to help is what we were doing.
So we don't want people to get too close to the scene, but if anybody can get...
Well, they won't allow you to get too close.
To get as close as they can get. Water would be helpful. Anybody who is actually physically able to help clear the scene.
Right. They have a command center set up on West Side Highway that that you can go to accept volunteers. I would imagine water, sandwiches, anything, pizzas, anything that anyone could donate, I'm sure would be welcome because these guys are really going hard at it down there.
Dave is over here, and Dave does not want to be on TV, but Dave, if you can just tell me, do you know exactly where on the West Side Highway is the command post?
West Side Highway, the overhead bridge by World Trade Center, 1 block north of Church Street.
And you think that if people bring pizza, bring water, bring
anything you can, bring just moral support because these people are going to be down there for days.
Okay. One of the concerns here for these folks also is that a relative was in the building. Dave, can you tell me what floor the relative was on? Is it too much to talk about?
John David, man, go home.
All right. Basically, Matthew, maybe you can help us here. People are very overcome. We are several blocks from where the towers exploded, but what we want to tell everybody is that if they have a concern about a relative, there are things to do. I noticed that we put up a number earlier, and you can call that number to find out if your relative or your friend got out. Matthew, you have a friend, a close friend and a relative of Dave's in the building.
Dave's cousin, yes, he was an electrician. I'm not sure which floor he was working on with Local 3. From what I understand, there was close to 100 electricians on the job, which could very well have been affected. I'm not sure. We're not sure at this point. But, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, let's all put it together and display some humanity and get down there and do what we need to do. We all live in this place together. It's a good place to live. It's disgusting. It's horrifying to know that that's going on. There's people buried down there. And if they're accepting the help, there's no reason why it shouldn't be there.
Okay,
we're going to take a break and we're going to go back down later. I just have to get the fiberglass off of my body and I'm going back down this evening.
Thank you very much, Matthew.
Thank you.
I want to shake your hand. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. And I hope Dave's cousin is fine. I hope everybody else who has a relative finds out really quickly whether or not the relative is safe. And there's really nothing more I can say from here, but we will keep you posted. Back to you in the studio right now. I'm Barbara Nevins Taylor reporting live.
All right, we're now joined by terrorism expert Phil
Pilevsky.
Pilevsky. Nice to have you here. Now, what makes you an expert in terrorism?
Well, I've written a book on called The Captive Continent that details terrorism in the Mideast and Russia.
Now, have you heard earlier in the day, we heard that the Democratic Front of the Liberation of Palestine had claimed responsibility for this act. Now they're saying they didn't do it. Have you ever heard about this group before?
It is very unlikely that that group. The chances are very likely it's the group in Afghanistan led by Osama bin Laden, and it's either directly or indirectly. It probably is that Islamic group.
Okay, we're sorry to have to interrupt you. We will come back to you, but I believe we are going to go to John Rowland, who is in the newsroom. He has an update for us. John.
Well, and I just want to talk a little bit about the children of our city. They are still in the schools, and what if you're concerned about your child, what the Board of Ed is doing is this. They're going to keep the children in the schools until a regular time when they're going to be dismissed as usual. They're going to keep the teachers, the principals, the assistant principals there to make sure everyone is safe. They are going to put them on the buses as normal. But the drivers are not going to drop off the kids unless a parent or a guardian is there to pick them up. So in any bus that pulls up and the parent or guardian isn't there, they're going to take them to a designated school in the district. So you might want to check with your local school to find out when and where that's going to happen, and otherwise make sure that you're there when the bus does come home at the normal time. That's the plan for right now. Just a quick mention about Wall Street. The financial markets closed today, probably also again tomorrow. Even though the buildings there are okay, structurally the buildings there are okay, the word is now that that the market trading will be closed tomorrow. Connecticut's going to pitch in. Connecticut is sending out their National Guard. They're going to deploy their National Guard personnel to come to New York to help. Governor Pataki has already called out the National Guard here in New York to do whatever they can. Back to you now in the studio.
John, we go back now to Mr. Pilevsky, American Foreign Policy Organization, and we were talking about this terrorist group. Rosanna, you had asked.
Yeah, so you don't think it has anything to do with this terrorist group? You think Osama bin Laden is behind this?
Yes, because this is a very coordinated effort. This had to have detailed planning. It had to have a tremendous amount of infrastructure to do this, tremendous coordination, and it had to have a worldwide network. That's the only organization right now that we know about that has that is Osama bin Laden's group in Afghanistan.
And that would have the financing to pull something like this off as well.
Right.
Now, we showed some tape earlier today. It was reaction from the West Bank, and it showed people rejoicing in the streets there, adults as well as children. The fact that Yasser Arafat has condemned this, does that really mean anything?
Totally irrelevant.
Doesn't mean anything.
Totally meaningless. Of course, everybody is going to every leader of any country or any group is going to publicly condemn it. However, you could bet a lot of them are, jumping for joy.
Yasser Arafat has been condemning all the violence in Israel for the past few months.
He's condemning it with this hand and doing it with the other hand.
It is very
irrelevant, but this is more than that. This is this really has nothing to do with what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Palestine.
What does it have
this
to do
has
with?
to do. This all started out. This all started out when President Carter allowed the Shah of Iran to be taken over by the group in Iran. Once Iran became an Islamic state, it gained a base and a legitimacy. See, this was only a fringe movement until Iran came into being. Once Iran came into being under Ayatollah Khomeini, okay, it gained a base and a legitimacy. Once it gained a base and a legitimacy, this became a transnational movement, which is a movement to go through boundaries. And this has been, since Iran came into being, this movement has been growing and growing, and it's been growing more poisonous ever since.
And
so this is just a strike, really.
Gone through boundaries. I'm sorry.
So this is really a strike against the U.S. You're saying that it doesn't have that much to do with what's going on between Israel and the PLO. That it
totally nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do.
Totally nothing to do with it. The Khomeini movement had zero to do with Israel, and that's where all this comes from.
All right. We're going to come back to you. We do want you to stay with us. We are going to go out to Dave Price, who is live right now. Dave, what can you tell us?
All right, Lynn, the feeling out here at this point is so odd because depending on who you speak to, It ranges from being scared to a sense of chaos, a lack of control, and a strange sense, in some cases, of a serene calm, and people just going about their business as if nothing has happened. It really depends on where you go. We're right now on 5th Avenue at just about 46th Street or so. We're in between St. Patrick's Cathedral as you head up to the north, and we've also been over to the United Nations within the past 2 hours or so. The United Nations, of course, evacuated, and people are just beginning to come out of St. Patrick's Cathedral, some stopping in for a moment of prayer. And just a little while ago, we were down by Grand Central Station, and just as we were approaching Grand Central Station, 2 or 3 people started to run, and then a pack of people immediately began to run right after them. And there was a little bit of screaming. There were packs of people trying to figure out what was going on. One person said there was a package in Grand Central. And as a result, this kind of chaotic state rolls around of either misinformation or disinformation. And that's really what's kind of rolling through as a theme up and down this region of the city right now. So some people have stopped by the truck here and asked us where they can donate blood. Others are just trying to get home and are getting various amounts of bits of information as to what's open, what's closed, where they can go on foot, and where they're allowed to go by car. But we're continuing to see automobile traffic almost come to a stop here. And every once in a while, every few minutes, we'll see a series of police cars or an ambulance here and there race down to the southern tip of Manhattan. I doubt you can see it. I'm going to ask Alan, our cameraman, to pan down to the southern tip right along 5th Avenue, and you can still see plumes of smoke. And everyone, every time a larger plume goes up, says, was there another explosion? Did you hear that? And there's a great sense of uneasiness right along this area. And I'm not sure if we have another shot which we can show you, but many stores right up and down 5th Avenue, Madison Avenue, and through the heart of Manhattan have simply closed up shop, put down the gates, and people have gone. So Lynn, that's what's going on right now. And as we mentioned, again, fire crews, police crews making their way to various points in the city, but things beginning to certainly thin out, and many buildings, office buildings, as well as state municipal buildings, of course, have been evacuated. I'm going to put the phone up to my ear just in case you have any questions.
Okay, Dave, are you, you're getting cell phone transaction?
Yeah, cell phone, I'm going to put the phone down for a minute again, Lynn. Cell phone transaction is sporadic at best. In fact, even in our communications, you'll try 10, 12, 20 times, and then every once in a while, you'll get a signal or get through. Sometimes you'll just dial up, and there's no sound at all. And a lot of people on this street simply want to contact a loved one and say, I'm okay, I'm here. And in fact, many people walking up to the truck saying, do you know a way I can get through to so-and-so? And simply, if you pan up and down the street as you walk, you'll see people simply frantically dialing and redialing the phone in the goal of reaching someone at home or someone to relay a message. Lynn, I'm going to put the phone back up to my ear.
You know, you mentioned something earlier when you were talking about a couple of people started to run, and then more people started to run, and then someone said something about a package at Grand Central. I just think we should advise people that if they're out, if they see a policeman or someone of authority, they should stop and ask them for information, as opposed to listening to information that they're getting from people on the street.
Yes, that's correct. And the second thing is, Lynn, the complicating factor here is that the police themselves, with the speed with which all of these changes, all of this information is coming out, often some of the officers and those who are here to help have not gotten a lot of that information as quickly as it's rolling through, and are forced to say, I'm not sure at this point, but this is what we do know. And as a result, people are walking around saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I've seen people who have done loops around this Midtown area who've come by 3 or 4 different times saying, do you know any more information yet? I'm just trying to get home.
All right, Dave, we are going to have to leave you now, but we will get back to you soon. Keep your eyes and ears open out there, and of course, we'll get back to you and you can give us an update on what's going on in our streets. This is just a horrible, horrible day for us.
It sure is. Yeah. Well, John Rowland now is down in the newsroom with a very special guest, the former mayor of New York City, David Dinkins. John.
All right, thanks, Rosanna. From David Price to David Dinkins. Dave, what words of advice do you have now to the people of New York watching?
Well, I think that they should listen to the mayor, listen to government officials, to be as calm as one can expect in these circumstances. And I think they should remember that Americans, New Yorkers in particular, some of the toughest folks you'll find anywhere. And among the first thoughts I had when I heard of the explosions, and I was in Midtown in the 50s, when I first heard about this, I thought of Churchill in London, and how difficult it must have been for those people with those buzz bombs falling. And Churchill, by force of his character, rallied an entire nation. And I think that's what our president is going to do, is doing, our governor, our mayor. I think that each one of us ought to offer our support to the government officials. I have called the Cornell Burn Center and offered my help. Said, what can I do to help? I know that you got a hotline for blood, 800-933-2566. Along 3rd Avenue, just short of your studios, I saw hand-made signs directing people to the blood center, and as you and I were saying earlier, there are lines of people. So New Yorkers are responding as they always do, and I think that's a very good and positive thing. But we will not, as a city, as a nation, we're not going to knuckle under to terrorists. We just won't. We can't.
We did, of course, have to make some changes today. The primary election was canceled, trading on Wall Street.
Right.
So a temporary blip in our, our freedom.
It's what the British call a hiccup. It's necessary for us to do that. I was to teach a class this afternoon at Columbia University, and all classes have been suspended. But students, we're going to have classes in the future. We will go on. We must go on. But we have always stood up and have met the situation, no matter how difficult. And I think if as people normally do, no politics, all that aside, if everyone will respond and take the direction and the leadership of the mayor and the governor and the president of the United States, we'll come out of this as well as anyone could.
This is certainly our biggest, most extensive test ever.
It's a hell of a challenge. I recall in '93, I was in Japan, in Kyoto. It was about 4 a.m. in the morning in Japan when the same World Trade Center was bombed here. But Ray Kelly was my police commissioner. He was on the case, right there on the scene. We had televisions hooked up so that we could view what was going on, and I could speak as mayor directly to the command center. And we handled it well, thanks to Ray Kelly and the FBI and a lot of wonderful people. And the same kinds of people are in charge today, and I'm confident that they'll do the right thing.
All right, comforting words. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, John.
Thanks, John. I'll pick it up from here. Also, some reaction from around the world. I mean, they've boosted security at U.S. embassies around the world. Canada has closed its borders. Israel has closed its airspace to any foreign flights coming in. And, of course, military installations around our country are on full alert as of this moment. Right now, we're going to go to Mario Bosquez, who is live for us down in Lower Manhattan with the latest from down there. Mario?
Hello, Linda. Yes, I'm assessing the situation here on quite an interesting perspective, because I'm proof of the fact that here in Manhattan today, the only